Our next session, session 2, is on temples and Hindu awakening. And our session chairperson is Sri Sat Maharaj Ji, who is the General Secretary of the Sanatan Dharma Mahasabha in Trinidad and Tobago. Sat Maharaj Ji, please. Sat Maharaj Ji is a leader of Hindu community in Trinidad and Tobago. He is the General Secretary of Sanatan Dharma Mahasabha, the major Hindu organization in Trinidad and Tobago. It operates 150 mandirs and over 50 schools. Under Sat Maharaj Ji, the Mahasabha has modernized all 42 schools and built 5 secondary schools as well. And he's also built 12 early childhood educational centers. I would also like to invite the following speakers to come on the stage. Swami Paramatmanand Ji Saraswati. He is the General Secretary General of the Hindu Dharma Acharya Sabha. Paramatmanand Ji is not here? Okay. Then Hari Mohan Ji Jha, Vidyarthi. Sri Gajanan Maharaj Sansthan, Shegaon, Maharashtra. Pandit Ronar Murli Bhattarji, he is the chief priest from Hindu Temple of Minnesota in USA. He's doing his thing. I think he's going to finish and come. And Sri Champat Rai Ji, Secretary General of Vishwa Hindu Parishad of America. Of Bharat. Oh, sorry. How could I say that? So with that, I'll hand it over to Champat Sat Maharaj Ji. And before I do that, there are a couple of things. So there is this remote control for managing your slides. So there are two arrows, okay, one pointing to the right, one pointing to the left. So, okay, Paramatmanand Ji, please. So we can use you can use these to flip your charts. And also a request to the speakers, if you could please finish your speech in time. So there is the timekeeper sitting over here, Mamta, and she's going to give you a warning at 2 minutes left for your speech and at 0 minutes left for your speech. That will help keep things flowing smoothly on time. And with that, I would like to hand it over to Sat Maharaj Ji.
It means that the solutions that we are seeking will not fit every problem in every one of the countries. And I want to lay that out by pointing out to you that temples have developed and their usage depends on the place the temple is and the society that the temple serves. In India, you have a unique problem. I believe that problem is unique to India, except I am corrected, where the state has seized the temples as a money-making enterprise. That is not the experience of many of us in many different countries. In my own country, Trinidad and Tobago, and in case you didn't know where Trinidad and Tobago is, it's a little dot 6 miles off the coast of Venezuela. It's only 1,800 square miles. But you might know of some of the people from there because the great English writer, novelist, Vidya Naipaul is from my country. The man who scored 400 runs in the Test series, Brian Lara, He's from my neighboring village. And Sulin Narayan, the spin bowler who they couldn't understand in India, he's also from my country. So although it's a little dot way out in the Caribbean, this is where we are from.
Acharya Sabha.
Om Namo Brahmadibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartrubhyo Vansharshibhyo Mahadbhyo Namo Gurubhyaha Sarvo Baplavarahitah Pragnanaganah Pratyagartho Brahmaivahamasmi Brahmaivahamasmi Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavadvyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Ajnanatimirandasya Gnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Distinguished Chair, as well as distinguished listeners and participants. As just now it was mentioned, the problem to India is unique, quite dissimilar not only to Trinidad but other countries. But I guess we have unique problem because we have tradition of thousands of years over here. And since the things are new over there, you are confronted with the less problems. Now let's look at the basic problem that we have regarding our temples. I have to move myself in the slides or somebody is there? No, I'll take care. This is the one. Now, as it was mentioned in the earlier by the chair, that so many temples are controlled by the government, and let us understand the problem. To understand the problem, we need to understand what the Hinduism is. Nowadays, there is a popular feeling, even our Supreme Court has said that Hinduism is a way of life, which is not true. Hinduism is a vision of life. Hinduism is a vision of truth. Truth about the God, truth about the self, and the truth about the creation. Very famous verse, Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam. Wise man sees the whole creation as nothing but the expression of the God. So also there are verses in Gita, Manmana, Bhavamat Bhakta, etc., etc. And till one gains this vision, our rishis have told us, or culturally we have gained this wisdom that we should have an attitude of the wisdom. So attitudinally we look upon everything that belongs to the Lord. That being a case, even the famous example of Bharata and Rama we have in history. Lord Bharat, when Bharatji came back, he ruled the kingdom and placed Rama's Paduka on the kingdom, implying everything belongs to the Lord, I am just a servant. You are the chairman, I am just the managing director in a modern jargon. Even that tradition is still there even in Jagannath Puri. When there is a Rath Yatra, the king of Puri himself brooms the road, implying that, oh Lord, you are the master, I am the servant. And that being the case, we have such a huge temples in south of India which were traditionally built. I am not talking of the modern temples which are on the roadside or the end of the street, implying whatever king had, the Lord being the ultimate owner should have more than the kings. Kings had the elephants, so the temple had the elephants. Kings had those cooks, the temple had a separate cooks. Kings had those Vajindravalas, those used to play music in the early morning, so they were special singers for the Vajindravalas for the Lord. And kings had one to do Shrungara, so therefore there were a team of people who will just do Chandanam and do Shrungara of the Lord. Thus Lord was looked upon as ultimate king. Even the king right in Puri, I can quote in south of India, king of Trivandrum, Thiruvananthapuram used to, his ancestors used to report to the Lord every day what we did, oh Lord, this is your kingdom. And our Mahabharata and Vedas all mention that king is a servant. This is Vedic vision. And therefore, not only the kings, but the rich people built the temple. And therefore, we have this tradition, Narikta Pani Rabhivadayet. One should not go to empty-handed to the king, or to the temple or to the teacher. Therefore, the common man, whoever went to temple, they always offered something, carrying from the home. And if not available, we have new form in a modern form in terms of shops are available, you buy from it and then you offer it to the Lord. So therefore, the rich kings and the rich built the temple, they left the wealth, and they left the huge amount of land in the name of the temple deity. Because for the temple maintenance, the kings gave away certain pieces of the land, and all these were there in the name of the temple deity. But the most unfortunate thing is, for the greatness of our country is, the Lord, the temple Lord, in the eyes of the Lord, is minor. Okay, that's the beauty of it. We are major with him. And therefore, in course of the time, some feud took place between the priest or the trustees or the local people. State government way back in 1840s took over one or two temples when the Britishers took over. That time few temples, when we got independence, few temples were taken over by the Britishers that were handed down to our state. But later on, each and every state government formulated a law, either a common law, each state has a common law, as well as a specific law to take over a specific temple. And the famous examples are the TTD temple. There is a special law passed in the Andhra Assembly. And more recently, the Sai Baba temple, recently they took over Maharashtra government just 3 years ago. They had a special law and they took over this temple. Now, understand, these, I'm sorry, there is no pointer. Now, please understand, the income from these temples is credited to government treasury general account. This is the snag. In the treasury, all money goes, received from VAT account or income tax or other tax, and every money is dumped together. And the temple trust is, since it is taken over by the government, either it is headed by government officials or office party workers, and these people are not necessarily Hindu. A shocking, classic example is, once upon a time, the Siddhivinayaka temple was headed by none other than Antule, our minority minister, the one chief minister who was removed in a scam. And many places, the temple trust are headed by ex-officio district collector. That person may not be Hindu, but then since he is ex-officio, he hates. This is the problem. Now look at the consequences of this. What happens? That there are sixfold destructions that is taking place because of the government takeover of the temple. First, the temple wealth, hundi, ornaments, lands, etc. are looted, literally looted. Second, the rites, rituals and the practice are tampered with, they are played with and changed. Third, temple architect is destroyed. Fourth, government and in some of the temples, I will show you the pictures, government is using the temple premises to run their own departments. So it is no more a sanctious, pious place. It is a place where governed babus exchange bribe over there. So corrupt places. And fifth, inscriptions on the temple are the living records of our ancient time and history. They are also tampered with. They are also being destroyed. And lastly, the knowledge, art and the culture, which was temples were supposed to be the center for propagating and protecting the knowledge, art and culture. They are no more that, and that also stands destroyed. Let us look at the problem and the consequences one by one. Now, just I'll give you example of one state of Tamil Nadu. The state of Tamil Nadu government has 39,491 temples. Excuse me, the chair just now said in Trinidad government supports us. But I guess total Hindu population may not be equal to the number of temples that are there in India in Trinidad, okay? So our problem is quite different. 39,000 temples, and they have agricultural land of 478,462 acres, buildings of 22,600 buildings owned by the temple, state land 33,627 sites are there, and 3 crore square yard land. And annual revenue as of now is of this rented property is 50 crores per year, which according to rough estimate should be more than 7,000 crores per year. Even simple Tirupati Balaji temple gives away. You think that you are giving this for Raj Bhoga to the temple, you are giving for Lakshmi Ji to the temple, but ultimately after all the expenses no doubt taken over by the state, since it's taken over by the states, expenses in terms of salary and light and maintenance are meant by the state government. But more than that, over and above the expenses, state government earns 1,200 crores per annum. Cash, 1,200 crores. You can look into the website. And the equal amount of gold and jewelry also goes to state exchequer. As I told you, the snag is this. They don't specify that this income is the temple income. Whereas when we run the trust, in the trust somebody donates you for hospital, they tell you this is for hospital. Somebody gives you money for education, this is for education. Somebody gives you money for some health building, it is for building. But in government account there is nothing. It is not mentioned that this is Hindu money, and therefore they can use any money anywhere. As I mentioned, Siddhivinayak temple chairman has given donation of 5 lakhs in 70s to a Christian missionary school. And the politician, when they hate those temples, they in the name of seva, they use the money in their own constituency and therefore create a vote bank at our cost. So the money given to temple is not used for Hindu cause. Not only that, another Tamil Nadu scenario, 92% of the land lease revenue is uncollected. And most of the lands are leased to either their politicians or people connected to party. And most shocking news is, some of the lands in Tamil Nadu of the temple is leased to Christian missionaries. And that to a throwaway price. Recently, Jayalalitha gave away some land at 30,000 rupees per annum, whereas the market price for the lease should be 6 crores per annum, because they are doing social service. Likewise, 91% of the sites of the rent remains uncollected. 78% of the buildings rents are uncollected. Properties transferred to individual identified as 8,540 acres in Tamil Nadu. Temple property has been given away to somebody, some factory or some politicians. Now, this temple, look at this. It does not come, site, print. Coming, look at that. They just broke the whole temple to build something. And therefore, this architecture is destroyed. As I mentioned earlier, inscriptions were removed, that also got destroyed. And Sri Kalhasti temple, which Panch Mahabhuta, we have Akash, Vayu, Agni, Jala, Prithvi, etc. That Panch Mahabhut Kalhasti temple remains like this for a number of years after this sometimes, and it doesn't get repaired. Money is lost there with the government. And this art and culture, knowledge in art and culture also is not attended, which is there in our temples. That being case, look at this government office. I'm short of the time, so I'm going, brushing the teeth quickly. She showed me there is no minute left for me. And look at these office papers. This is how the government is running our places. And to solve this, Acharya Sabha has filed a case in the Supreme Court. For 1.5 years, we have put a writ petition, but unfortunately none of the states is replying. But heartening news is, we fought the case of this Chidambaram temple, and we have won the case, and the judgment is so clear. We had 3 legal conferences in Delhi, Hyderabad, Bangalore. We had invited constitutional experts. All of them opined that government can never hold the temple. And our argument, Chidambaram case also, court has opined that you cannot hold. We have given 2 arguments to the Supreme Court. You want to take over temple and manage temple, declare India as a Hindu state. You cannot remain a secular state. If you are managing the temple. And if you are a secular state, you give away the thing. And second message that with which we are fighting, I tell you, roughly We are giving to different state governments, beginning from Gujarat to Assam and from Kerala to Kashmir, not less than 1.50 lakh crores of rupees. Goes to different state governments through different temples. Our slogan is Hindu money for Hindu cause. That is the bottom line. And I can assure you, if we get this management of temple and Hindu money with us, Christians will be running to save their community, not we. We will convert them back. Thank you very much. I am short of the time, so I am finishing. Taking for 1 minute extra. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Swamiji, for giving us a picture of the problems faced by the temples in India. I want to remind everybody that this is a World Hindu Congress. And whereas Kerala may have 20 times my population, Hinduism is now spreading its wings across the world. And your organization is fast developing in the United States of America and in Canada and even in my country. So that when we are talking about Hindu problems, we have to look at it globally. We understand the problems you have. These problems have been here with you for 1,000 years. You start fighting, you might get someplace there. But we mustn't lose sight of the fact that Hinduism is global now. And what we are benefiting in the United States of America, I want to remind you that they have eased their immigration laws so that they could get priests and nuns from India here. So they are taking priests and nuns from Calcutta because the Americans are not becoming priests and nuns. I just draw your attention to this because Hinduism is now global, and we have to look at it globally and not lose sight of what we want to achieve across the world.
The next speaker is actually Dr. Hari Mohan Jha Vidyarthi ji, and he is giving the presentation on behalf of another gentleman, Shri Shiv Shankar Sukhdev Patil ji, who is the managing trustee of Shri Gajanan Maharaj Sansthan, Shegaon, Maharashtra, since 1962. He committed to religious, spiritual, educational, medical, philanthropic, and other services of national interest. Shri Maharaj is the deity of devotees working in whose service is considered as the prime duty of the Sansthan, which, along with its 5 branches, carries out 42 philanthropic activities in the service of the community, including Anand Sagar, a spiritual care center, and amusement park of science and religion. He throws his heart out in rendering services to humanity and thereby draws self-satisfaction. So our speaker today is Dr. Hari Mohan Jha Vidyarthi ji, who's speaking on behalf of that institution. He is the professor and head of management in the engineering college that's run by that institution. Dr. Hari?
Revered dignitaries on the dais and respected representatives of World Hindu community, my humble pranam. I stand here first to invoke Sri Sant Gajanan Maharaj to shower his blessings on all of us and the entire humanity, and to express our sincere gratitude for the invitation to present in this first World Hindu Congress on role of temples in serving community on behalf of Sri Gajanan Maharaj Sansthan, Shegaon, Maharashtra, Bharat. Temples are the places of Shraddha, Bhakti and Seva, faith, devotion and service. The devotees come to temples with Shraddha and Bhakti and give donations out of the same. It is for the trustees of temples to render Seva using these donations. Selfless Seva to devotees reinforce their Shraddha and Bhakti, and Seva to community in needs gets translated into the blessings of the deity for the devotees, and in the process causes happiness and prosperity to entire humanity. Sri Gajanan Maharaj Sansthan, Shegaon, Maharashtra, practices this universal truth of Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina under the instructions of Sri Maharaj, and is very humbly serving the society for more than a century now, as shall be obvious through this presentation. Sri Sant Gajanan Maharaj, an omnipotent holy saint, made his divine appearance on 23rd February 1878 at Shegaon and took Sanjeevan Samadhi on 8th September 1910 after his incarnated life and preaching of 32 years. The dictum of this Sansthan is Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, let all be happy and prosperous. Keeping this dictum in mind, 9 rules of the trust were formulated with the blessings of Sri Maharaj. The 5 main and important rules of these are: do not accumulate money, do not touch money, do not allow pilgrims to stay for longer period, trustee must do selfless services, received amount should be properly utilized for the noble cause, etc. All the resolutions of the trust have been unanimously approved since its inception in compliance with the government rules and regulations and those of the Sansthan. The religious life runs on the internal faith, whereas routine life is based on assumptions. Indian religion and Indian economics believe in sacrifice, service, and duty at its root. These philosophical principles are applicable in the conduct of nation, institution, and family. One can constantly assimilate prosperity, sense of living together, and high values in one's life by following these philosophical elements. In the religious space, devotion, dedication, and service being emanating from the heart disapproves the wealth accumulation. Thus are rendered selfless services through heart and hands here. Intellect is required in routine transactions. This causes selfish and self-centered feelings. Intelligence leads to selfishness if there is no dharma in life. Sansthan assumes dedication, devotion, and service as its only wealth. The total annual income of Sansthan is around rupees 1.37 billion, $23 million, which is spent exclusively on service activities. There is no salary paid as staff in Sansthan. Honorarium and office expenses calculate to 13% of the total income. Even though the Sansthan is a religious organization, it spends only 6% on religious activities. It spends 10% on creation of facilities for devotees and those for the Sansthan. And the balance of 71% of its income is spent on medical, educational, social, and other philanthropic services. All services are rendered here selflessly and with utmost dedication, and therefore any return from such expenses is never thought of. Health services. The Sansthan carries out different health services for the community, as you can see on the slide shown here. There are run different dispensaries including allopathy, homeopathy, Ayurvedic, and the physically challenged in the mandir premises. The expert doctors are deputed, and according to their treatment, the poor patients are given medicines, injections, saline, etc. Thus, the Sansthan caters to the timely medical help to the needy patients. 45 expert doctors from cities come and voluntarily render services in these dispensaries, where on an average 1,200 patients are treated daily. Since there is no medical facility available in the rural areas of this region, the Sansthan runs 4 mobile dispensaries which treat 200 patients every day. The Sansthan has adopted 11 lakhs poor people in Buldana district, the district of Sansthan. Any patient can go through a surgical operation at any nearby hospital. For reimbursement of medical expenses, only 3 prescribed forms are required to be submitted to Sansthan. These are form for obtaining permission, form for the recommendation by the concerned doctor, and form for the recommendation by the doctor doing the surgical operation. Patients have to submit these duly filled forms along with expenditure statements to the Sansthan. Post-operation, patients have to physically present themselves in Sansthan for verification. 70 to 90% of the total expenditure is given to the patient immediately through draft as economic assistance, depending on the amount of claims received and the fund available. 26,000 operations have been carried out so far. 1,000 MBBS doctors, 800 surgeons, and 2,300 radiologists and pathologists doctors are voluntarily offering services under this scheme. Educational services. Sansthan governs a residential school for mentally retarded children and Warkari Shikshan Sanstha, and runs under its supervision an engineering college, an English medium school, a research center, Sant Gajanan Tool Room. These are counted amongst the top educational institutes in Maharashtra. There are several other educational activities carried out by the Sansthan, as you can see in this slide. Social services. A number of social services are rendered by the Sansthan for the community, as you can see here. There are 3,000 honorary workers and 11,000 voluntary workers, Sevadharis, who are serving the Sansthan. There is another list of 3,000 persons waiting for a call of service to Sansthan. It is their sincere and wholehearted service attitude, because of which the Sansthan renders services, and they alone are the founding stone of all service activities of the Sansthan. These Sevadharis are less educated and are often sons of farmers from the rural areas. They are found with eternal property of faith, devotion, and service. They are all dedicated in the service of Sansthan, and hence Sansthan also extends assistance during their days of hardships and needs. Time to time, Sansthan has been organizing various camps for eye surgery, physically disabled, and for the relief of people after natural calamities like earthquake, fire, flood, and extends service and assistance within its limit. Sansthan distributes clothes and necessary materials for sustenance of the poor people in huge quantity. The distribution of food has been given importance since the days of Sri Maharaj himself. The prasad along with sweets is distributed amongst average 75,000 devotees daily. This figure touches 3 lakhs devotees per day during the festivities. All these devotees are fed prasad while being seated. Sansthan is to commence a scheme for cooking and distributing food for 3 lakhs of people within 6 to 8 hours' time. Employment opportunities. All works of Sansthan are accomplished through departmental workers and or labor contractors. 8 to 9,000 persons are incessantly working for construction, workshops, and other labor-intensive works. Yet, construction works cost here 40% less than the scheduled rate without compromising with the construction quality. Sansthan accepts minimum donations from devotees, which is 60% less than the local market rate, against amenities like Bhaktanivas, meals, breakfast, and others offered in the service of devotees. This causes residual income in the pockets of devotees, which they spend at different business counters in the local village. Thus, the local villagers get a business worth rupees 4 to 500 crores per annum, providing employment to 10 to 12,000 hands and sustaining the livelihood of their dependent family members. Spiritual and religious services. Sansthan carries out several spiritual activities, one of which is distribution of devotional materials and instruments. This trust abides by the religion as followed by Warkari community in Maharashtra. Devotion is central to this religion. This community is mostly found in rural areas of Maharashtra. The distinctive characteristics of this community is that they have been living de-addicted life for generations and follow human approach beyond caste and creed. Though poverty-ridden, they live their life with happiness and satisfaction. The Sansthan observed that these people are filled with devotions but are devoid of instruments and materials to express it. Sansthan has therefore formulated rules to eliminate this deficiency and has accordingly distributed devotional materials and instruments and related materials to people of this community belonging to 14,000 villages from 63 districts of 5 states by now. By doing so, there is found substantial rise in the devotional spirit of the people who from villages after villages have become de-addicted as well. Anand Sagar Spiritual Center and Amusement Park. This is a wonderful symbiosis of science and religion, which is erected in 300 acres of land based on the philosophies of prominent saints from 18 estates of our nation. Saints have lived for the cause of humanity alone. More than 25 lakhs visitors and tourists come to Anand Sagar every year, and they have experienced peace, tranquility, and satisfaction by visiting the project and have returned back with the rich cultural sense. 4,500 accommodations with all amenities have been erected and are available in the service of the visiting devotees for their comfortable stay. Thus, 42 different philanthropic activities, including as small as a shoe stand to commuting devotees to bus stand, railway station, etc. places, and related services as per need are carried out by the Sansthan. Towards the end, we feel extremely happy to extend our humble and cordial invitation to you all to visit our Sansthan and give us an opportunity to render our services. Jai Gajanan, thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Pandit Ronar Murli Bhattarji. He is the chief priest of the Hindu Temple of Minnesota, USA. His ancestors for 500 years have been priests in the Sri Lakshmi Venkata Ramana Swami Temple in Ronur, Karnataka. His religious training includes Panchatra Agama and Sri Krishna Yajurveda. He has over 20 years of experience and is a recognized leader in the Hindu priest community in the United States. He is actually a very special Pandit. He is one of the few Pandits who carries a Mac computer with him, and he does a lot of his activities on the Mac. He'll talk more about it.
Jnananandamayam devam nirmalaspatikakritim Adharam sarvavidhyanam hayagriyavam upasmahe. Namaste. Dear brothers and sisters of universe, Sanghe Shakti Kali Yuga. Unity is the power of Kali Yuga. Time has come that all Hindus of universe has to come together. Today I am going to talk about role of priests, the future of Hindu society, challenges and responses abroad, especially in USA. First topic is role of a Hindu priest. The best way to preserve and promote Vedic Hindu Dharma is through the Hindu temples. The well-trained Hindu priests are the key to accomplish this goal. They enlighten the devotees with their devotion towards God and with his rituals that he performs to the God. He brings all devotees together and he tries to give them peace of mind during the prayers. And also he conducts all kind of rituals, religious ceremonies at temple as well as at their homes for all the priests, for the Hindu devotees that who is migrated to United States of America. Lot of them, they are all born and brought up here, and in their busy schedule they could not learn about Hinduism, and in abroad they are all very interested to learn Hinduism and practice our Hindu rituals, and also they want to learn and also they want to give it to their kids for the future to take over our Hindu religion in abroad. So with that, We try to help them to explain about all the rituals, that what we are doing, why. If you take a wedding, for example, so most of the weddings are happening between interfaith marriages in America. So it's a big challenge that today we are facing, that most of the kids are getting married with other religion. So during this time, parents wanted to have a wedding with a Hindu tradition. And the boy and girl who is coming from other religion, they wanted to have their wedding in their own religion. So here is the problem, that they come to us and they will ask that we wanted to have a Hindu wedding, and they want both. So, and also they wanted to have in a short way that can fit. We usually in India we do weddings for 3-4 days, but in there they wanted to have it a wedding in only 1 hour. So it's very problem to us that we have to condense all these rituals without affecting the main purpose of the Hindu Shastras, and we try to accommodate that kind of the weddings. And also we try to explain all the religious significance of the each step. Priest is one who have the peace with himself, master of all his senses, and compassionate to other living beings. So since as a priest, he will have all these nitya karmas that he has to perform. With that Shakti, he will have a peace on himself. And also he will try to guide all the devotees to go in a right path. The Hindu worship services called puja, literal adoration, is the central activity in the most temples conducted by a priest. Each temple will have its priest or even a whole team who perform regular worship in the temples. Hindu priests conduct special ceremonies such as various rites of passage both in the temple and people's homes. Hindu priests conduct rites such as marriages, home purification, naming ceremonies, and organize regular festivals. Priests offer help to the sick, dying, and beware at the offer counseling to couples who are getting married. And also sometimes we go to the hospitals, sometimes hospital calls that a Hindu patient is here and they need a blessings for the patient. So we go to the hospitals and we do the Mrityunjay Japa, and we bless we pray to the God to cure this patient soon. And also people come with another problem is to divorce. So people, all these couples, newly wedded couple or olderly wedded couple, they come for this divorce things also. When they come that kind of situations, so we suggest and we emphasize our Hindu values, that how our Ekapatni Vrata system has been adopted in our Hinduism for a long time, and that is the way to be lived. So most of sometimes we succeeded with this divorce cases that people came back without going to the court, and they settled down. And also sometimes we have problems with the like a already married man, so he has a divorced wife, and also he got second married, and their first wife's kid is getting married. So they wanted to have a wedding for their previous wife's son or daughter is getting married, and they say that why we wanted to, how we can do it. No, her mother is divorced, or his mother is divorced. And we suggest that, in our Hinduism, we do not have any divorces. Our Shastras did not say anything. We have only for the unite, for the wedding only, we have all the mantras, but we do not have anything for the divorce. But we emphasize that for one person, only one marriage. So we always, whoever has given the birth, she or he is the person who can perform the rituals of that wedding. And also here we try to involve all the Hindu community in all the ceremonies without caste and creed. For example, in last year in our temple, we did 108 Homakunda Vishnu Sahasranama Yajna. So that can, most of the devotees know Vishnu Sahasranama Stotram. Who doesn't know, we try to teach them, and we did a Vishnu Sahasranama Yajna in 108 Homakundas. So here we allowed each and every devotee can come and sit in a Homakunda, and they can perform the Homa along chanting with the Vishnu Sahasranama Stotram. So that this gives some more participatory thing for all the devotees, that and also for the young generation to participate in these pujas. And also we try to maintain our traditions also, our ancient traditions, that what we have been following for a long time, to maintain all the traditions and also to accommodate these kind of new requests that we did not have any need in Bharat. So there we have to accommodate some kind of special requests that comes from the community. Within the temple, we try to practice only our Hindu activities only. So if somebody wanted to come and marry in our temple in a Christian style or any other religion, we do not allow. So we only do Hindu weddings or Hindu ceremonies in our temple premises. Whereas in hotels, they can have both weddings, but in our Hindu temples, we only have a Hindu ceremonies. And also here the first generation of Hindus are born and brought up in Bharat, and they migrated to abroad, and there they have built all these temples. As other speakers said this morning, this is a challenge now, how second generation is going to take care of our Hindu temples in abroad. Though first generation Hindus has a very good faith, and also they born in this Karma Bhumi, Bharat. They came there, and their kids are also, all their kids are born and brought up there, and they are more exposed to the other culture outside, because in a day they spend more than 8 to 10 hours outside with other kids and other activities. Those spend with the parents, they can spend 2 hours or 3 hours a day, sometimes lesser than that. That's all they can spend with the parents. So during that time, they will take a meal or a coffee or things like that, watching TV, but they will not have enough time to talk with each other. To accommodate all these problems, that all Hindu temples in America is conducting a Sunday school, Hindu school classes. Who is born and brought up in America, all the kids will come and they will learn about Hindu Shastras like Mahabharata and Ramayana stories, and also about our Hindu great leaders, about our Hinduism. All Hindu temple schools are teaching this good Hinduism for our next generation kids. And also, I have observed that if you are born in Bharat and you brought up anywhere in the world, you will have that samskar, and you will automatically, that samskar will show up, that when you see a Guruji or when you go to a temple, how you bow and how you act in the temple, that will be different the kids who is born in abroad. They will not have that kind of attitude and samskar, that how to respond to this kind of religious things. Lack of exposing to the religion, that the significance of rituals and pujas need to be explained. And also, when we went to the Pathshala in India, we do not have, other than mantras, we do not learn any other languages like English or anything. So that's a very important thing, that here in Bharat, all the Pathshalas has to start teaching teaching the meanings of all the mantras, as well as other national or international language like English for the priests. So that way they can explore, they can maintain more Hinduism there in abroad. And also in America, in all the Hindu temples are trying to teach for priests English, some temples. And also nowadays we got all these gadgets like iPads and computers. We use all that for all pujas, and we download all the mantras in that, and also all the meanings for the mantras. And when we go to the homes and we show it to them, and we try to explain, we give the iPad to the kids so they can read what's there. So, and they will also learn about all the rituals. Challenges, and there is some challenges: attitude, faith and feeling behind performing pujas with younger generation priests. Self-discipline, earning respect and respecting others, that's also one. Should perform nitya karmas and respect fellow priests who may come from different traditions, influence of other religions and their culture. Involve balancing India's regional differences. In India, a priest comes from one region, he will know only that region's traditions, whereas in America, devotees are coming from all parts of India. So we need to have a broader ideas and broader knowledge about different traditions that we can accommodate to all the devotees different parts of the country. So I'm going to, here we have some challenges, that same-sex marriages, and we have to think about that. And also gender role, sometimes male and female gender roles, maintaining sanctity and cleanliness, kind of sometimes all these things we have to discuss in future. I got some photographs that we could not find our presentation in the computer. So this is like participatory pujas for all the devotees, and this is a interfaith wedding, and also this is Sunday schools that we conduct in Hindu mandirs in America. Thank you. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Our next speaker is Sri Champat Rai, who is the Secretary General of Vishnu Parishad. He has a master's degree in physics. He taught physics from 1969 to 1981 in Rohtak and Dhampur. He is an RSS Swayam Sevak from childhood. He resigned his job to become a full-time pracharak. He was appointed Jila Pracharak of Dehradun, Saharanpur, UP, then Vibhag Pracharak of Meerut. He moved to Vishnu Parishad since 1986, first as the Prant Sah Sangathan Mantri and the Sah Kshetriya Sangathan Mantri office at Ayodhya. Since 1996, he has been in Delhi, having various roles as Central Joint Secretary, Central Secretary, and Joint General Secretary. And Champat Rai ji is going to talk about VHP, the vanguard of Hindu awakening.
आज के इस सत्र के सभापति त्रिनिदाद से पधारे श्रद्धेय सत महाराज जी, मंच पर विराजमान वक्ता पूज्य स्वामी परमात्मानंद जी महाराज और शेगांव गजानन महाराज के स्थान का प्रतिनिधि और अमेरिका से पधारे अर्चक, मुख्य अर्चक, सभागार में उपस्थित सज्जनों, बहनों, संत महापुरुषों को, सभी को मेरा सादर प्रणाम स्वीकार। मैं सोच रहा था कि ये 3 दिन का वर्ल्ड हिंदू कांग्रेस 2014 हिंदू अवेकनिंग का एक लिविंग एग्जाम्पल है। 1964 में भारत में चिन्मय मिशन मुंबई के केंद्र पर एक विश्वव्यापी हिंदू संगठन बने, इसकी प्रेरणा त्रिनिदाद के एक मेंबर पार्लियामेंट शंभुनाथ कपिल देव से प्राप्त हुई। त्रिनिदाद के मेंबर पार्लियामेंट शंभुनाथ कपिल देव, एम आई करेक्ट? शंभुनाथ कपिल देव 1963 में भारत पधारे थे। त्रिनिदाद के हिंदू समाज की कुछ कठिनाइयाँ थीं। हमारे बच्चों के विवाह, पारिवारिक संस्कारों को कराने के लिए भारत सरकार प्रीस्ट वहाँ भेजे, ये उनकी इच्छा थी। सरकार से वो काम पूरा नहीं हुआ। तब राष्ट्रीय स्वयंसेवक संघ के तत्कालीन सरसंघ चालक परम पूजनीय श्री गुरु जी से वो मिले थे। उनकी इच्छा पूरी की गई थी और वहीं एक वैश्विक हिंदू संगठन की आवश्यकता अनुभव हुई। ये विश्व हिंदू परिषद की स्थापना की पृष्ठभूमि है। दुनिया में रहने वाले हिंदू समाज की आवश्यकताएं हैं कुछ। वो हिंदू समाज 200 साल पहले कैरेबियन देशों में गया या 60 वर्ष के अंदर स्वतंत्र भारत में पढ़ा और आगे काम करने के लिए, पढ़ने के लिए, जॉब करने के लिए दुनिया में गया। भारत के चारों ओर के देश हैं जो परंपरा से अपने संस्कारों को भारत के संस्कारों के साथ जोड़ते हैं, हिंदू हैं। सबकी अपनी अपनी कुछ स्थानीय कठिनाइयाँ थीं। भारत के हिंदू समाज की भी कठिनाइयाँ थीं, संकट थे, और सब संकटों का निवारण हिंदू संगठन में अनुभव किया गया। दुनिया में अगर शांति चाहिए तो हिंदू के द्वारा होगी। अब ये बातें सब सामने आ रही हैं। ये बातें 1963-64 में चर्चा में आई और इसलिए हिंदू पहले जागृत बने, जगे। हिंदू सोया है, अपने बारे में वो उदासीन है। इन्फीरियरिटी कॉम्प्लेक्स है। हमारा समाज लंबे समय के संघर्षों के कारण अनेक बुराइयों से ग्रस्त है। देश में कोई भी पढ़ा लिखा, सब पढ़े लिखे होते थे। 1964 में निरक्षर बहुत थे, इलिटरेट। चिकित्सा की सामान्य सुविधाएं गांव में नहीं। हमारे एक सज्जन ने बताया, जाति, हमारे देश में जातियां तो थीं परंतु जातियों के आधार पर डिस्क्रिमिनेशन नहीं था। मैं ऊंचा, ये नीचा, हम दोनों इकट्ठे नहीं बैठ सकते, अपमान हो जाएगा, ऐसा भेदभाव नहीं था। लेकिन 1964 में ये महसूस हुआ। देश की आज़ादी के बाद भारत के हिंदू को भी जगाना, अच्छा बनने के लिए जगाना पड़ता है, सामाजिक बुराइयों को भी दूर करने के लिए जगाना। भारत का हिंदू जगेगा तो दुनिया में भी हिंदू जगेगा, ऐसे आधार पर काम प्रारंभ हुआ। 50 साल इस कार्य को हो गए। इस 50 साल के कार्य की परिणति आज हम सब के सामने है। कितना आनंद का विषय है कि भारत सहित 50 से भी अधिक देशों के ऐसे महानुभाव जिनके पूर्वजों की धरती भारत है, अथवा जो अपने जीवन का सुख, अपने जीवन का मोक्ष इस धरती के संस्कारों में, हिंदू धर्म और परंपराओं में देखते हैं, ऐसे सब बंधु यहाँ उपस्थित हैं। दुनिया के भिन्न भिन्न हिंदू विद्यार्थी, महिला, भिन्न भिन्न क्षेत्रों में काम करने वाले लोग संसार को अच्छा बनाने के लिए इस हिंदू वैल्यूज़ को कौन किस प्रकार अच्छा कर सकते हैं, इसका विचार यहाँ हो रहा है। भारत के बाहर हिंदू अपने अपने देशों में क्या कर रहे हैं, यहाँ कल और आज इसका कुछ दर्शन आपको होगा। देश की समस्याओं पर भी यह चर्चा हो रही है। मंदिरों की चर्चा आपके सामने आई, परंतु भारत में विश्व हिंदू परिषद किस रूप में काम कर रहा है, मैं इसका छोटा सा वर्णन आपके सामने रखूंगा। हमारे देश की एक समस्या, इस देश का 1947 में पार्टीशन हो गया, पार्टीशन कर दिया गया। ये बहुत देश के इतिहास के साथ बड़ी पीड़ादायक घटना है। हम लोग इस धरती को माँ कहते हैं। ये हमारे लिए एक लिविंग एंटिटी है। अपने सामने अपनी लिविंग एंटिटी को कटते हुए हमने देखा, ये पीड़ादायक कितना होगा। ये परिस्थितियां भविष्य में पैदा ना हो, इसके लिए आज से काम करेंगे तब शताब्दियों बाद परिणाम आएंगे। इसके लिए हिंदू समाज को जगाना, जो भूल, जो गलतियां अतीत में, पास्ट में हो गई, उनका रिपीटिशन ना हो, इसके लिए जागरण। दूसरी बात, जातियों की चर्चा आई तो मैंने कहा भाई जातियां हैं लेकिन डिस्क्रिमिनेशन नहीं होना चाहिए। इसलिए आज भी शब्द आया इनॉग्रल सेशन में, वननेस ऑफ द सोसाइटी, होमोजीनियस सोसाइटी। भारत में दुर्भाग्य से अनटचेबिलिटी है। इस समाज को होमोजीनियस बनाना, वननेस का भाव मन के अंदर निर्माण हो। अनटचेबिलिटी ये समाज का हिस्सा नहीं है। हमारे लौकिक व्यवहार भाईचारे के आधार पर होने चाहिए। हमारी धरती का दुनिया को संदेश है, आत्मवत् सर्वभूतेषु सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः। सबको सुखी बनाएंगे, सबको अच्छा बनाएंगे, तो इसका पालन समाज करे। हम ये सब बातें बोलते हैं लेकिन हमारे व्यवहार में नहीं, इसलिए भारत में हम काम कर रहे हैं। देश में तमाम अन्य बातें हैं। एक एक समस्या का विचार करते हैं तो विश्व हिंदू परिषद के कार्यकर्ताओं का चिंतन है कि हम इस धरती के वैल्यूज से दूर चले गए। हिंदू जीवन मूल्यों को हम भूल बैठे। अगर महिलाओं के ऊपर आपराधिक कृत्य होते हैं तो हिंदू तो कहता है, भारतीय मनीषियों ने कहा है, मातृवत परदारेषु। ये विचार जन्म से हमारे यहाँ से किसी कारण से हम भूल गए, आचरण में नहीं रहा, ये विचार फिर से हमारे आचरण में आए। इसी प्रकार परद्रव्येषु लोष्ठवत्, दूसरे का धन मिट्टी मानकर चलो, ये इस धरती का संदेश है हमारे पूर्वजों का। ऐसा संदेश जीवन में आचरण करने वाला व्यक्ति धन के प्रति कभी अपराध कार्य नहीं करेगा। तो ये जो हिंदू जीवन मूल्यों का प्रचार प्रसार है, इसके लिए समाज को जगाना। जातियां रहें, लेकिन हम इस धरती के पुत्र हैं, ये धरती माँ है, हमारे पूर्वजों के संदेश हैं, इनके अनुसार हम जीवन जिएं, इसके लिए हम प्रयास करते हैं। लोग धर्म के आधार पर इकट्ठे होते हैं, जातियों के आधार पर इकट्ठे होते हैं, पॉलिटिकल आइडियाज़ के आधार पर इकट्ठे होते हैं। हम प्रयास करते हैं कि इन सब के बावजूद हिंदू के रूप में लोग इकट्ठे हों, सब जातियों के लोग आएँ, सब प्रोफेशंस के लोग आएँ, विलेज में रहने वाले, टाउन्स में रहने वाले, हर प्रकार का प्रोफेशन अपनाने वाले लोग आए, लेकिन एज हिंदू इकट्ठे हों, हिंदू का भाव जगे। इसके लिए हम काम भारतवर्ष में कर रहे हैं। आज हमारा काम लगभग मोर देन 50,000 प्लेसेस पर है। इसके साथ साथ जो भारतवर्ष के रिमोट एरियाज़ हैं, जहाँ सड़कों का भी अभाव है, 60 वर्ष में सरकार के भी साधन जहाँ नहीं पहुँचे, ऐसे स्थानों पर इनफॉर्मल लिटरेसी प्रोग्राम हम चलाते हैं। और ये सारे जो समाज के भिन्न भिन्न प्रकार से समाज को अवेकन करना, जागरण करने के काम हैं, हमारा बड़ा ध्यान रहता है कि ये सब काम अपने अपने क्षेत्रों का यहीं का समाज स्वयं करे। सरकार की सहायता से, सरकार के फंड्स का उपयोग करके समाज अपने काम न करे, ये भी समाज के अवेकनिंग का हमारा एक प्रयास है। ये प्रयास भारतवर्ष में 6 लाख गांवों में पहुँचे, ऐसी हमारी महत्वाकांक्षी कल्पना है। 50 साल में अभी हम 50,000 स्थानों पर ही पहुँचे हैं और 51,000 प्लेसेस पर इनफॉर्मल एजुकेशन के माध्यम से हमारी अप्रोच हुई है। अभी हमने कुल 1/6 विलेजेस को टच किया है। 100% विलेजेस को टच करने के लिए हम भारतवर्ष में प्रयास कर रहे हैं। विश्व से आए हुए बंधुओं के लिए भारतवर्ष में किया जा रहा हिंदू जागरण के काम का छोटा सा दृश्य मैंने आपके सामने रखा है। पुनः आपके प्रति मैं आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ। धन्यवाद।
Devotees, we reached the point where we wish to open up for a discussion. We invite questions from the floor, and we hope that we of the top here will be able to answer whatever queries you may have.
All over the world, the institution of marriage is being eroded with 50% divorce rate in USA, and our Hindu community is no exception. Gradually our rate of divorce is also increasing. Particularly in the NRI community, there is a 14% divorce rate, while it is only 1.1 to 2.2% divorce rate in India. That being so, among the activities of the temple that you have taken, please include marriage enhancement education course also. Because in USA, the US government realized that the country cannot survive with 50% divorce rate, and because family is the very foundation for the society. And Clinton government gave federal grants to universities to develop curriculum, several curriculums were developed. I took the curriculum from Kansas State University called Couples Talk, and I Indianized it with our culture, culturally sound curriculum. I developed it and developed a book called Successful Marriage. With that, I am conducting myself several seminars, both in US as well as in India. And I want the temples in US particularly to take this as a task and put part of their things that they will do that on because the churches are doing it. In US, the education program, there it is compulsory. In order to get a marriage license, you have to attend the one-day course and then you get the license to marry. In India, it is not compulsory, and this kind of course should be incorporated, I suggest, into your program, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your session. We will consider that, and I will talk to you regarding that. Sure, thank you.
Thank you very much. This is such a wonderful platform of conversation about the service of the Hindu temples to the upliftment of humanity. And I'm very happy to see Sri Sat Maharaj representing such an impact as 150 temples and so many schools in Trinidad, Tobago. Something very amazing to me as far as Hindu research is concerned. I've been also living in South America, your neighbor. In other countries, we have many country farms. And the specific topic I wanted to bring for conversation here is how we can implement this traditional simple living, high thinking, which is like the Gandhi lifestyle, which comes to us from, I guess, from our imagination, how Krishna lived in Vrindavan and all this simple and this modernized world with so many things. So my Guruji, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he asked us to make self-sufficient communities where we actually again live with the country and doing all these things. So I'm actually also asking you specifically, Sri Sat Maharaj, how do you deal with this? What is your vision there for Trinidad, where so many people are actually Hindu favorable? No? In our countries, it's much more difficult because we are only surrounded by Christians who are met with great surprise. And before I get your answer, I would just want to say one thing I've noticed as far as Hinduism is concerned. There is a resurgence in Hinduism, which is not very much noticed, or maybe yes or not, but not discussed. This is all the great interest around the world in Ayurveda, in the interest in yoga. People are becoming, so many thousands and millions of people becoming vegetarians, inspired by the ahimsa concept. So directly or indirectly, so many people in the world are actually becoming Hinduized in their consciousness. If that would be accompanied by our temples opening, and also like Vishwa Hindu Parishad, this whole conference is so open and so loving in that sense, as much as it can be on that great of a forum, the more we open to the world and make them feel welcomed into the Hindu family around, it will increase incredibly. That's one of the great successes of Buddhism. Anybody can be a Buddhist if you want to be a Buddhist like that, you know. So if we have this openness in our temples, then it will make a great difference, I think. Thank you so much.
All right. Since we are from the same part of the world, I would like to respond to you and to let some of our listeners know, yes, in the West there's a resurgence of Hinduism. Yes, some of the finest books written on the Bhagavad Gita, on the Ramayana and other texts, they are now coming from the West in the English language. There is a survey done by the Pew Survey, which says that 60% of Americans believe in transmigration of souls. 75% of Americans, you believe in reincarnation. The yoga, which is a Hindu art form, has now caught on in America. You are an American, so you will follow me well. That the Christians are so concerned that they have now invented something called Christian yoga to deceive their followers. So yes, I am of the view, I'm born in the West. This is purely an accident of history. The British colonial, they needed laborers to plant sugarcane, and they took my grandfather from Basti, and they took him down to the Caribbean. Now I want to visit India only as a guest. I like where I am living. So that we will re-export Hinduism. I'm saying this jokingly. Don't take me seriously. We will re-export Hinduism to India.
From West.
My question is to Swami Paramatmananda, because his presentation gave us something very startling. I belong to Jammu, where we have this experiment of Mata Vaishno Devi taken over by the state government. The state of J&K pays salary to its employees from Mata Vaishno Devi Shrine Board funds, and later they get it from the center. And all the officers of state working in Mata Vaishno Devi, they get all the facilities, including cars for their children studying in Delhi. So officers' children studying in Delhi, they have Innova cars of Mata Vaishno Devi funds. And even the university they created has no department on Hinduism, nothing on Hindu philosophy. It's a so-called secular education. And all these things are happening. My question is, sir, I feel there are two challenges. One challenge is the main plight of government taking over a temple is because the previous management or the trustees in fighting, and they invoke some legal point that there will be disturbance of peace, so they take over. So how to get good quality people who can manage temples? This is first question. This is a challenge in front of the whole Hinduism, because the main problem is to get selfless people, dedicated people to run the affairs of the temple, where we hear that we cannot take anything offered to temple for our own use. And then my second question is, everywhere we find, for example, Dr. Hari Mohan Jha, he is running a management institute which is from the funding of the temple income. So what is the scriptural sanction where the funds offered by devotees as donation to the deities can further be utilized? Whether we can use them for all these purposes, or they should be used for the propagation or empowerment of Hinduism. So these are my two humble questions. Thank you.
Nice that you rightly said the funds are misused. Everywhere it is the same story. So much so the district collector's children get a laptop at the cost of the temple money. From there it starts. And not only vehicle, other perquisites. Now what you have been asking is a very complex issue, and we are working on a scheme because there are 2-3 models which may not work for Hindus. Waqf is a one model, SG, this Shiromani Gurudwara Prabandhak Committee is another model. But we have to devise our own model. That we will do it, as they say, we will cross the bridge when we reach to it. So first of all, our aim is to get it released from the government. What you rightly said, that is, there was some mismanagement. A classic case is Vaishno Devi, but not all cases. They just create a feud in between the trustees to take over, like what the Britishers did for us, created, and then they themselves pitched in to protect the kingdom. Now, about the second part, you see, forget about the scriptural, but let us talk simple. Even today, as for the laws governing the trust, the money given for the purpose cannot be utilized for a different purpose. As I mentioned in my talk, money given for medical purpose cannot be used for education. For education cannot be used for some annadanam, etc. Whether explicitly told or not, but when a Hindu puts some money in a hundi, it is certainly not to fund the Hajj. It is certainly not to rebuild the Christian church. It is certainly not to pay to the government officials and other trustees. So, primarily it is for Hindu. And that is why we have a slogan, Hindu money for Hindu cause. In fact, I would take this opportunity to suggest our friend here, any educational institution run by temple money should give Hindu samskara. Why should you use temple money to run MBA or medical college? There are so many. You should inculcate at least, as I often say when I go to corporate people or college students and they say, Swamiji, what are you doing? I say, I am converting Hindu into Hindu. Okay? We have born Hindus, but not practicing Hindus. So, all the temple people or religious people running any social or educational activity, they should have a thirst area to imbibe or impose that samskaras and then do this. This should be value addition, not the primary thing. Okay, so Hindu money for Hindu cause, in other words, so-called secular activities for Hindus only and to make them Hindu. He wants to add something. Excuse me, he wants to add what I said to it.
I just wanted to add one thing to your question. Our Sansthan runs two institutions. One is Warkari Shikshan Sansthan as part of its educational activity. And in Warkari Shikshan Sansthan, the children of Warkari community are taught Vedanta. They are taught rhymes from the Hindu scriptures. That is where, that is where the amount is spent. The engineering college, English school, etc. are under the supervision of the Sansthan. Expenses come from the government and the tuition fees, etc., not from the temple. That is where it is. And even in that, we commence our classes every day on campus-wide prayer. Students, teachers, staff, wherever they are, they will join while standing. Then there are a number of spiritual discourses which are conducted. The entire campus of 100 acres is vegetarian, not written, but without any written instruction, they follow it. It is non-alcoholic, even engineering students follow it. No smoking, nothing of that sort. And out of about 2,000 students, 1,800 students reside inside the hostels of the campus of the college, and they follow these traditions. After they pass out, many students come back and say, we are missing that the yoga classes which were held, we were not attending. We are missing that the prayers we were not attending. We have community prayer hall for teachers. We have prayer hall in every hostel where morning and evening prayers are rendered by the students. And all these things happen there. Thank you.
You want?
All right. But before there is slight disagreement of approaches on the top table here. My slogan in my country is the secular and the sacred are inseparable. The secular and the sacred must go hand in hand. As you teach a child how to read and to write and to work mathematics, you must also at the same time teach the child how to pray. So these two, that is our slogan. Others may have different slogans. Now, sir.
Intellectual property rights and the laws, we are making amendments. Same way we should demand for the Hindu patent laws for supporting and preservation of the economic front, as you said, and religious aspect also, including yoga. When we talk about Christianity of yoga, we want to say yoga is pure yoga, and the intellectual property right of yoga goes to India and to the Hindu customs and beliefs.
That's
so
why this strategic move to declare World Yoga Day has been moved by Acharya Sabha only, just for information.
Thank you. That was my suggestion.
There's some gentleman there. He has been asking from beginning. Yeah, please come in the front. Haji? No, I'm telling that gentleman first. There are two. One there.
I am Ragholu, Vishwa Hindu Parishad Joint General Secretary. My suggestion and also maybe a question. One thing, for every temple, we need a Bhakta Mandali. This Bhakta Mandali is the people surrounding the temple. From each house, let it be one person. Actually, the people, they should see the welfare of the temple, and then the temple will take the welfare of the society. So this is all interdependent. That is one my suggestion. And the second thing is, actually our rituals, maybe the festival, maybe the Achara Niyamas, it has got a very much scientific knowledge. Everything has got science. But that is not known by this present generation. This present generation needs everything. They want what is the science behind it. So if we go for this type of subject, for everything, they have got the science, it has got history, they have got the common living, the society, common society living. So these things actually we have to teach from the temple through Sant Mahatma or some knowledgeable person as permits. If these two things are happening, I think that will be fulfilled.
One more question before our time expires at the top here.
Here, Mamta.
Sardarji has been asking.
पहले तो आप सबको नमन. मैं यहाँ पर यूथ कॉन्फ्रेंस में आया था और उत्सुकतापूर्ण आपका एजेंडा पढ़ करके मैं यहाँ आया, क्योंकि मैं शायद आप लोगों की तरह टेम्पल्स में इस तरह इन्वॉल्व और नहीं हूँ, मगर फिर भी मेरी कुछ जिज्ञासाएं थी जो आप लोगों ने प्रेजेंट किया, तो मैंने सोचा मैं आपसे पूछ लूँ. टेम्पल, when you say that the situation is not the same with every temple, especially in metro cities where wealth is actually accumulated and it is spent even by own trustees for their own use. One of my colleagues, I come from a UN organization, one of my colleagues, he told me that one of the temples in Delhi, the trustee has asked for his car fuel, although it should be a service. If a person is not willing to service the temple.
Go ahead with the question, please.
Yeah. I'm asking, why not youth is associated with temple management, and why don't you, I don't see many people here, why not youth is associated, because ultimately you will have to retire one day. So why not you train us from the beginning? Why do you have to, let your hair gray before you get into that business? Yeah. Now, sir.
Since our time is limited, I will ask him to answer the question, and I pass back to the chairman there.
Please be quick, specific to the question.
Sir, this can be a question and this can be a suggestion that temples are basically meant for holiday visits and festival visits only? Because when you go to the temple...
I'll answer it quickly because, see, the youth needs this how and why of it.
Absolutely.
Temples have so many rituals taking place, but unfortunately the people over there, neither the parents nor the priest explains him the spirit behind that form. So those rituals should be explained to youth, and we welcome your suggestion that there should be programs, specific programs for youth by the temple as well. And if you excuse me, that Sardarji has been asking right from the beginning. Let him have his question. Please come forward and finish it off. We are getting quite late. He will ask
you suggested Shiromani Akale Prabandhak Committee model, and there is a question there. This is being misused by certain politicians, and the Gurudwaras have gone under the control of the politician. How do you react to that?
So therefore I said we have to create our own model.
So do you believe in this model?
Haji?
Do you believe in this model? I mean, keeping it apolitical.
Some part of it we have to take it, and some we have to live it.
Okay.
So therefore I said we have two models, but we have to create our own model. I said so.
And second, in this model, which you are, which you have appreciated, the pujaris, interpreting it, pujaris are paid employees. They are not the owners of the hundi, right? So how do you take that as?
See, there are two kinds of temples. One we are given to Brahmanas. They were practically owners of it. So the hundi should belong to them, it was. And in some of the temples, pujaris are paid. So it will depend upon temple to temple, and we'll have to work out a standard model. So we'll do that. As I said, it's... Oh, you had one chance already. You shout it.
Really quick. 30 seconds.
You can make it. Just...
Yeah, just say it.
This is so interesting that we are talking about education, the problems temples are facing, and a great vacancy is there. We are studying in our schools in a system which could be called neo-colonial education. We have many teachers, acharyas.
Please come to the question.
Yeah, just
30 seconds you have. Okay?
I know. But the point is that from the side of this forum of the Vishwa Hindu Parishad and all the temples, we have to have a new proposal of what education is really meant to be, which can be accepted on this platform and then applied, which solves many of the problems. Because if those problems are not really addressed in our educational system, then the solutions will just be removed from us.
You can ask in educational forum. You may ask the question in educational forum, but I agree with you. We need to give this secular education for them earning, but at the same time we have to make them a good human being and good Hindus. So both should be done. What the chair said, we agree about, already answered.
So just to add to that, this year, the Hindu
we have a
Mandir
lady
Executive
who
Conference...
is fighting to have a voice heard. Will you give the lady a break?
You want to just really quick, please?
Dandavats pronouns for all the people here. I am representation of the temple presidents, women's temple presidents, so I want to know if here in this Congress you have any networking or something to be, to make us in the women's group sustainability in South America maybe, or if you have the vision of the plans to take the mothers or the women in the society to make temples, Hindu temples in there. Maybe do you have Sri Sat Maharaj or Sri Ronur Murali Prabhu?
Yeah. All right.
No,
we thank you very much. Your presence here on a female voice must be very sobering.
We can talk about this.
Thank you very much. Mr. I don't know what title you carry.
Abhaya.
You are the controller. Thank you very much, and to the audience, we thank you very much for listening to us and the differences we have. As Hinduism is moving towards the world stage, we are going to have these developments. We are going to have these disagreements of approaches, but we are sure that in the future, Hinduism will strive. A lot of people who are not in the West, you won't know, you have not been told. But my friends in America will tell you, a lot of the churches are empty, and Hindus are buying the churches and converting them to mandirs. It's happening in London and other major European cities, so that we are not falling backwards. But we must not be fearful, because the Catholics at one stage used Latin as the only language. And when they freed up their Mass, they do it in French, they do it in Spanish, they do it in Russian, they do it in Chinese. And the time will come, and I am saying that time is almost here, when Hinduism, the Ramayana will be, already it's done. It's sung in Hindi, and the translation is done in English. So that as Hinduism move to become a world religion, you have to embrace all the languages of the world too. I thank you most sincerely.